Hey everyone, we're just going to give everyone a minute to join and make sure there's no issues. As a reminder, if you've done these before, if you do have a headset, it is the best way to hear. If you can just make a quick comment click the wave icon on the bottom right hand side of your screen to show that you can hear and see us all okay, that would be awesome. Lots of good mornings. Amazing. Okay, well, let's get started. Thank you for joining our Destination DC webinar this week. We know it's been a challenging time for the industry and are grateful to have you join us here today. My name is Corey Marshall, and I'm fortunate enough to be the account director here in Australia and New Zealand for Destination DC. I am joined live on location from Washington, D.C. by our own Lindsay Hill. She's our expert and trade manager, and she's going to take us through today's training. This is a great opportunity to extend your knowledge for when we are back in action selling holiday experiences. I've been fortunate to be the lead on the DC account for the past few years, and have visited on so many occasions, the most recent even being in January of 2020. There's so many amazing experiences. There's, of course, the monuments, memorials, and museums, but some of my favorite experiences are in our neighborhoods. You're going to hear about these today with Lindsay. Nothing beats a youth street food tour and one of Ben's half smokes, or a chance to see one of the many professional sports teams play, not to mention the incredible shopping in Georgetown, or a trip to the wharf for an amazing dining experience. Something we all can look forward to in the future. Couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any questions as we go along, please type these in the comment box on the right-hand side, and we'll answer these where possible as we go along or after the webinar session. If you're part of our Sell Your Way to the USA incentive program, you'll be earning an extra point today for attending. If you have not yet registered, you can still do so, and we'll follow up after the webinar with all the details. Before we start today, we want to ask you a couple of questions about Washington, D.C. Following the questions, I'll turn you over to Lindsay, and she'll start the training. So question number one, and please go ahead and just answer them right on your screen. Have you visited Washington, D.C.? Yes, you've loved it. Not yet, it's on your bucket list. Question number two, have you sold Washington, D.C. to your clients? Again, yes or not yet. And question number three, how would you rate your current knowledge of Washington, D.C.? Excellent, good, could be better, or poor. We're just going to wait a couple of seconds for you all to answer. And in the meantime, I'm actually going to turn off my video and turn you over to the real expert, introducing Lindsay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Corey. And gigantic thanks to you and to Bailey and the rest of the Kiwi team for working so hard to set this up. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to learn a little bit more about Washington, D.C. during these extraordinary times. The city is truly a special place, and I'm very excited to give you a brief overview today and share just a small glimpse with you. To start, we will show you a video of what the real DC looks like.
When you mention Washington, D.C., the first thing people think about is politics. There's a whole world going on that people are not familiar with. We who live here, we know it has this vibration that spreads. There's a culture here. There's art, there's entertainment. That is DC. You know, we have Chuck Brown, and that was the godfather of go-go. We have Ben's Chili Bowl, you go there and get a half smoke. These are things that belong to us. It's cultural, it's creative, it's vibrant, it's fun. We love this place. People live here. And I encourage people to find the real DC, the living, breathing DC.
All right, so cultural, creative, vibrant, and fun. Those are definitely the words that I would use to describe Washington, D.C. I've lived in the city for 13 years, almost 14 years, and have worked at Destination DC for almost 8. And I truly love being able to represent the city every day. So to dive in, we're going to give you a brief overview of where the city is located, but then dive in a little deeper. So just to remind you of where Washington, D.C. is located, we are along the east coast of the United States and are the capital of the United States. And just to show you, this slide here is to show you just the close proximity that we are to some of the major cities on the East Coast, especially New York City. We're only a 3.5-hour train ride away on our Amtrak system, or about 4 hours by bus. And right in the middle is Philadelphia. So there's lots of opportunities to do multi-city itineraries along this area. Washington, D.C. itself is fairly small. It's only 13 by 13 kilometers, and it is a diamond shape, as you see here. We're surrounded on the west by Virginia and on the east by Maryland, which again provides some really amazing opportunities to do multi-day itineraries in the region itself and doing one-day trips outside the city to, in Virginia, to the likes of the Shenandoah Mountains and our wine country with over 100 wineries to experience, or Maryland, where you can have blue crabs and have access to beaches and the ocean as well. The area is serviced by 3 airports. We're going to focus, though, mainly on Dulles and Reagan, which are the ones in Virginia. And the city itself has over 700,000 residents. And what's really unique is most of these residents are between the ages of 25 and 40. So we're a very young, vibrant, and energetic town. There's a lot of young families that live in the city who, when we're allowed, go out every night of the week to happy hours and to explore the restaurants and other nightlife activities. Last year, we saw about 23.8 million visitors to the city as well. So getting to Washington, D.C. is really simple. Like I mentioned, we do have 3 airports to service the area, but our main international airport is Washington Dulles International Airport, which is in Virginia, about an hour's drive outside of downtown D.C. This is a Star Alliance hub, so there is lots of opportunities for connections from other cities domestically and internationally, especially if you're coming in from Chicago or Texas or California. Great news about this airport is that in 2021, our metro system, which is our subway or underground system, is extending a stop here on its Silver Line. So your travelers will no longer need to use car share or taxi service. Our other main airport, which is only 20 minutes from downtown, is Reagan National Airport, which is our domestic hub. This airport is under renovation as well, and will soon have a new American Airlines hub, which will expand your connection opportunities from different cities in the United States. This also does have a direct link with our metro system on the Yellow Line. So again, no taxi or rideshare is needed. As I mentioned, we are a quick journey from New York City or Philadelphia on Amtrak or by bus. If any of your customers are traveling that way, they would arrive in Union Station, which is directly in the city center. Again, there is a metro rail system that can help get people to their hotels. This also has an incredible food court and shopping experiences, and is also the area where most of our hop-on, hop-off bus tours and also nighttime tours begin. So to give you just a brief overview on this map of Washington, D.C. itself, the city is on a grid pattern and was created by Pierre Lafont, who also designed Paris. So there's a very European feel to Washington, D.C. That most people tell us that they feel that vibe when they're in the city. And the city itself is also a majority National Park Service land. So there is a lot of green, as you can see colored here. The National Mall itself is that green strip right in the middle. It's about 3 kilometers long, and it ranges from the Lincoln Memorial, which is the white building, all the way to the left-hand side, goes all the way through to the Capitol building, which is on the right-hand side. Directly above that is Union Station that we just talked about. In the middle, you see the Washington Monument, which is the tall spire. Directly north, the White House. Directly south is the tidal basin. This body of water is where the over 2,000 cherry trees from the Japanese government were given to the city in a sign of friendship, and is the basis for the iconic National Cherry Blossom Festival each spring. You'll see as well the Potomac River on the very left-hand side, which is just one of our waterways that connects the region. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the coming slides. So once you've gotten to the city, getting around is also really, really simple. We have many modes of transportation. We do not recommend that people drive in DC. Not only is parking expensive, but it's just simply not needed. One of the best ways is actually walking. We've been voted constantly one of the most walkable cities in the United States. But another great option, as I've mentioned several times already, is our Metro Rail system. It's very simple. It's color-coded. Every line goes through the downtown area. The silver line on the left is the one that will connect to the international airport. But you do need a Smart Trip card to access the rail system, which is pictured on the right. These are reloadable and rechargeable cards that never expire. You can order these online from the website before traveling, or purchase from a station when you arrive. They take credit cards and cash, and you can load them as needed or buy one-day passes. The Smart Trip card is also usable on the Circulator bus, which is the red bus, and is a city bus that makes less frequent stops and has several lines that traverse through downtown and the neighborhoods. So this bus is only $1, and if you use the Smart Trip card, you can actually get on and off the buses and transfer for as many times as you want within 2 hours. So it's actually a really great budget-friendly hop-on, hop-off bus tour, because one of the best routes actually goes through the National Mall, starting at Union Station, passing all the Smithsonian museums, the monuments, and back around the Capitol building. We're also a really friendly bike town, and you can rent bikes like Capitol Bike Share here that you can, again, just rent there with a credit card on site and do it by the hour. We also have companies that provide day rentals and bike tours. Scooters, as in most cities in the world, have become a huge deal in Washington, D.C. And we have 4 companies that currently have businesses in the city. And these, though, you do have to have the apps downloaded and credit cards attached to use them while you're in town. The newest form of transportation that we have been very excited about is our water taxis. These are high-speed commuter boats that seat over 100. We do have 2 waterfronts, the Georgetown Harbor as well as the new wharf area. And these water taxis connect both of those areas, but also the region in itself. So National Harbor is one of the stops. That is in Maryland, is not one of DC's neighborhoods, but the MGM Casino and Tanger outlets are located there. It also connects to Old Town Alexandria. So as you saw, the very left-hand side of the map a few slides ago was where all of the monuments and memorials are located, around the tidal basin, around Lincoln Memorial, and over to the Washington monuments. Every tour to DC must include a monuments tour. But there's several ways to do a monuments tour. The simplest is walking. I would still do it guided so you can get a lot of the history and make sure you don't miss some of the lesser known memorials like the FDR, which is my favorite. There's several companies that do the hop on, hop off bus service. And my favorite, though, as I mentioned, is a bike tour. This really is one of the funnest ways you get through the area of the National Mall quickly. The guides give you tidbits of history, but not so much that it feels overwhelming, and you get some exercise in as well. And don't worry, it's very flat, so anybody can do it. And the last thing I would definitely recommend that every traveler who comes to DC does is have them include a night tour into their monuments and memorials itinerary. Then even if you see them during the day, it's worth going back at night. It is a totally different experience. All the monuments and memorials are lit up, and it's just a breathtaking experience, and one definitely for the Instagrammable accounts. An awesome note as well for this is that the monuments are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It is an open air park. And that's something you're going to hear me say a lot during this presentation is things that are free. We have over 100 free things to do in the city, so it's great for anyone on a budget or anyone with families just looking to expand their options. So moving down the National Mall a little bit, next to the monuments, you start reaching the Smithsonian museums. I kind of call it Smithsonian Row. A lot of people think that there's one Smithsonian museum. There are actually 16, 9 of which are centered on the National Mall. The newest, which you can see in the upper right-hand corner, is the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which opened just a few years ago. This walks you through African American history from the 1400s all the way to today, and is a stunningly well done museum and definitely worth visiting. The National Zoo is a Smithsonian as well. So again, it's free of charge. If I didn't mention this, all the Smithsonian institutions, the 16 museums and the zoo are absolutely free to enter. We do have giant pandas there, and there's plenty of animal cams online right now if you want to check any of them out. Besides the Smithsonian's, though, we have over 90 museums and galleries, so that cross a variety of topics of specialized natures. So there really is something for everyone to enjoy. A few updates on 3 of the more popular Smithsonian museums. The National Museum of Natural History actually reopened its fossil hall this past spring, and now boasts the largest collection of T-Rex bones in the entire world. The National Museum of American History is finishing up its renovations on its 3rd floor, and which is where there's going to be a lot more of the pop culture icon memorabilia, as well as adding in an orchestra hall with a symphony, which is really cool. And then finally, the National Air and Space Museum, the location on the National Mall, is undergoing a huge renovation project. So they are really enhancing and redoing a ton of exhibits as well as some of the outside features. So it's good to note that at some points, some exhibits may be closed in a rolling nature, but all of the iconic memorabilia are still available. But the Udvar Hazy Center near Dulles Airport is also a Smithsonian institution, which is open fully right now. So going through to some of the paid attractions that are new or renovated for the city, the International Spy Museum has actually been a DC icon for over 10 years, but it has moved to its new location at L'Enfant Plaza, which is near the Wharf neighborhood. So it is twice the size with three times the artifacts, and this is a extremely awesome museum for families for sure. It's very interactive. You get a little chip that as you go through the exhibits, it kind of tests your skills and tells you at the end of your visit how well you would have done as a spy. 2 other museums that are new to our family in DC. The National Children's Museum opened this past January. It focuses on children ages up to age 12 and really focuses on STEM and STEAM activities. And then Planet Word, we are looking forward to welcoming in the next couple of months. They are focused entirely on the love of language, reigniting that poetry and songwriting and all of that. And this will, again, be a free museum. So when it comes to where to stay in the city, there's a vast array of hotel options to fit every type of traveler, from limited service, Hyatt Places and Courtyards, all the way up to your luxury properties like the Intercontinental, a Conrad, and then we have, your Independence, Watergate, The Line. But we are looking to welcome approximately 15 new hotels and 3,000 more rooms in the near future. Okay, so as we move away from the National Mall in the downtown area, there's a few themes throughout that are definitely worth noting and keeping in mind of. One is that DC is a fantastic food city. We have an eclectic array of chefs, and since we're such an international city of so many embassies, we have a ton of food options from around the world. We're also one of 4 U.S. cities to have a Michelin guide, which is really amazing. As Corey mentioned earlier, the half smoke from Ben's Chili Bowl is probably the most iconic food in the city, and that's pictured in the lower left-hand corner. Another food item that you definitely should explore is Ethiopian food. Outside of the country of Ethiopia, DC has the most Ethiopians in one area. So this is truly authentic. And again, I highly recommend a food tour. You get history and your meal at the same time. Many of the neighborhoods have them, but U Street and Black Broadway are definitely my favorite. We also have a ton of breweries and distilleries and wineries galore in the city for you to try as well. So DC, again, is a thriving theater town. Some say we have the second amount of seats right after New York City. Either way, there's something for everyone once again. The Kennedy Center is the main hub for our theatrical performances. They have Broadway shows, orchestra, symphony, concerts, opera, ballet, everything you can imagine. We also have Ford's Theater, where President Lincoln was shot, that still do theater performances, as well as old jazz halls that have been renovated where you can see concerts live. And again, we are the sports capital. We are so proud that so many of our teams have been champions the past couple of years. We have a pro team in every major sport inside the city. Our Washington Capitals have been champions recently, which is hockey. Our women's basketball team, the Mystics, were the champions last year. And most recently, our baseball team, the Nationals, are the current World Series champions. So there is definitely every time of year something to explore for every taste, and all of our stadiums are accessible by Metro as well. So in terms of what times of year are the best times to visit, there's no best time. Every time of the year, every month is perfect. The National Cherry Blossom Festival is by far our most well-known festival. This happens at the end of March and early April. It's 3 weeks of festivities, including a fireworks show as well as a parade, which is really a sight to see. Passport DC, again, we have over 100 embassies. And in May, the first 2 Saturdays, the embassies open their doors for an open house. Over 50 embassies participate. And this, again, is a free festival where people can see the food and the music and the traditional dress of many countries. You can travel the world in one day. In June, DC Jazz Fest is an annual event. This has grown year over year, and DC was one of the founders of jazz music, as well as the city where go-go was created. So this is a really fun time in the city. And of course, celebrating American Independence Day is no better than in Washington, D.C. Besides fireworks, we also have a baseball game, a parade, and a concert at the Capitol. And for our holiday months, we have everything that New York City has. But again, most of our activities are free. We have 2 Christmas trees, performances at Ford's Theater and the Kennedy Center. We have ice skating rinks, shopping, and zoo lights. Lots of fun things to take in. So we're going to explore some of the more, I would say, active or new or energetic neighborhoods and give you a sense of what you can do, what you can suggest in each of these. So Georgetown is probably one of the more well-known neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. It still has cobblestone streets. It's the oldest neighborhood. So some suggestions for you is definitely to do a tour, whether it's just a walking tour or a food tour. Here you can see the Old Stone House, which is the oldest building in Washington, D.C., the Exorcist Stairs, where the famous scene from the movie was filmed. There's also hidden gardens throughout this neighborhood, so it's a nice respite away from the city. In the afternoon, you can go down to the water and explore kayaking and paddleboarding. This is actually my favorite place to do that in DC because you actually get to kayak past the memorials and also Teddy Roosevelt Island, which is a lesser known area. And then in the evening, you can simply relax with some great food at the waterfront or take in a show at the Kennedy Center. At this point, travelers could get on the water taxi and take a 30-minute ride over to the wharf, which is the gateway to the Southwest area and the Capitol Riverfront. So from here in the morning, you're steps away from the Spy Museum, the Museum of the Bible, and Artec House. There's also a free shuttle that takes you from the wharf to the Spy Museum and also to the National Mall. And in the afternoon, again, this is one area where you could take in some water activities. There's also, in the Navy Yard neighborhood, a winery and a brewery, which would be my preferred entertainment for the afternoon. And then in the evening as well, in this area, you can see a baseball game, a soccer game at Audi Field, or take in a live concert at one of the 3 new concert venues at the Wharf. The Wharf is only 2 years old. It has 3 new hotels, 20 restaurants, and again, these new live entertainment options. Lastly, we're going to take you over to 14th Street and the U Street corridor, which is also very close to Adams Morgan, which is our main nightlife areas of the city. 14th Street and U Street are also the areas where African Americans were segregated during a part of our history. And so it also was called Black Broadway and where jazz was partially created. But again, like taking advantage of green spaces, checking out Meridian Hill Park, which is also called Malcolm X Park, and then grabbing some food at Ben's Chili Bowl, which again is a must for everyone, whether it's through a food tour or just stopping in on your own. And then definitely checking out the murals. We have murals from artists depicting major icons of jazz and history throughout the neighborhood. And again, this can be done through a guided tour as well. In the evening, this is a great time to do some bar hopping, to get a wonderful meal, get some of that Ethiopian food with Nil Ethiopia, or check out, again, we have famous live entertainment concert halls such as the 930 Club. So that is a very, very brief overview of Washington, D.C. I want to remind you that washington.org is the best resource for itinerary ideas, the best rooftops in DC, anything inspirational, but I wanted to pull out 2 websites. Right now, during the coronavirus situation, we have a website called it's washington.org/DC together. This is a way for you to take a virtual vacation and to explore DC's music and its food and take virtual museum tours and see the monuments in 360, all from the comfort of your homes. The other thing is that, again, this was a very brief overview. We have an exciting new program, which will be launching very soon, and you will receive an email about, which is our travel agent program called the Special Agent Academy. So this is a series of webinars where you will get to really dive deep into every single one of the memorials, the museums, the neighborhoods one by one, and then specialty topics after that. And I apologize in advance because I am the voiceover for all of those webinars, so you will get to hear my voice quite a bit. But this is a very exciting program, and we are really hoping you take a full advantage of being one of our secret special agents. So I thank you. I know this was a very quick overview, and don't know, I think we have a small quiz, and I don't know if we're taking any questions.
Agent Specialist Program to officially launch, and we'll make sure we get that out to everyone. So everyone else, that does conclude the training part of our webinar today. Hopefully we've given you some helpful information on what makes DC so special. Before you go, as Lindsay mentioned, we have a couple of questions to test your knowledge on DC. By correctly answering these questions, you stand a chance to win one of our spot prizes today of 2 Discover DC backpacks. These can be used for yourselves or potential future armchair travelers that may be at home. Speaking of armchair travelers, we will follow up tomorrow with an armchair travel opportunity email for you and or your families to experience some of our member partners' armchair travel experiences right from your own home on DC. It will also include a copy of today's recording for you to refer to. So I'm going to read through the questions, but I encourage you to answer them with the first thing that came to mind, and not Google is not appropriate here. So you can, Lindsay did give a lot of these answers away in her presentation. Washington, D.C. is this many hours by train from New York City? Is it 2, 3.5, or 5 hours? Question number 2, the following are all DC neighborhoods except for U Street, National Harbor, DuPont Circle, Georgetown. So keyword except for. And number 3, the latest Smithsonian museum to open in September of 2016 is the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the National Mall, National Air and Space Museum, or the Natural History Museum. So I see there's still a few people we're waiting on answers from. And a reminder, I see some great comments coming through. Those are really appreciated. But if you have any other questions, please go ahead and type them into the question box. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. And thanks to Lindsay again for all your expertise and for joining us today. If you haven't already, please sign up for next week's webinar, which is all about Grapevine, Texas. In the meantime, to finish, we're going to leave you with one final video. Please enjoy.
I'm really humbled to be a part of the DC Music Tapestry. There's a deep musical history, and a lot of people don't even know about it. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. Growing up, it was a really musical place. There was a lot of energy. Because DC has so much history and so many great artists, it's definitely part of my genetic makeup musically. Case in point, going to Duke Ellington School of the Arts, it made me want to really be a musician. Holding it down in the place to be, and we representing for the real DC. So DC has a lot for musicians here. And I most definitely use DC musical history in my own music. Black Broadway, Washington, D.C. was the cultural and social capital for Black folks before the Harlem Renaissance. And the Howard Theater predates the Apollo Theater in New York. Cats like Duke Ellington, and all these people that would come in town, like Billie Holiday. So many folks here, man. So much good music here in D.C. I love mixing together like those textures and learning about it to incorporate in my music. Thank y'all so much for being out here. So I think this is the perfect space to be in. Because DC has something that other places just don't have. There's all this rich history and culture that's our own, so we have our own flavor. And I'm really proud of it. Because of my upbringing here, I have an understanding of rhythm that's very unique. So I want y'all to know about that side of DC. So let's dig in.